Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. This is the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. When they were approaching Jerusalem at Bethphage and Bethany, near the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately as you enter it, you will find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' just say this, 'The Lord needs it, and will send it back here immediately.'" They went away and found a colt tied near a door outside in the street. As they were untying it, some of the bystanders said to them, "What are you doing untying the colt?" They told them what Jesus had said, and they allowed them to take it. Then they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, and others spread leafy branches that they had cut in the fields. Then those who went ahead and those who followed were shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." Then Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple. And when he had looked around at everything, as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Beloved in the Lord, grace and peace to you from the one who comes in the name of the Lord to give us a transformational revelation of God's love and to give us new life. Amen. Today is what we consider the beginning of Holy Week. It's a beginning of much celebration and a lot of ceremony. But today is also a day that can be a little confusing in the church. The top of your reading sheet for today that you'll find in your bulletins, it says that today is Sunday of the Passion / Palm Sunday. Today is that day. It's both Sunday of the Passion and Palm Sunday. It's a both and paradox. And Lutherans talk a lot about both and paradoxes. Well-known author Philip Yancey, some of you may be familiar with him or read his books. One of them is called What's So Amazing About Grace Anyway? It's a very good book. He said that he grew up in a fundamentalist church that didn't observe the events of Holy Week as part of the church's life. So Yancey never attended Good Friday service, and in his tradition, the church shied away from crucifixes because they were too Catholic. And he wrote this. He said, "The church I grew up in skipped past the events of Holy Week just to rush to hear the sound of a cymbal at Easter." The planners who design our readings and our schedule of readings each year didn't want us to skip past the events of Holy Week. So we read about them today and into the Holy Week services on Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday. We read about them, we sing about them, we preach about them, and we even reenact ceremoniously some of these holy events. Later this week, we'll gather in a sanctuary stripped bare for Good Friday. The planners of our worship and our liturgy want us to ceremoniously slow down and share Holy Week deliberately. Easter, of course, is a very big deal. So all of you, please come back next Sunday. Bring friends, bring your family, come back next Sunday. Easter is a big deal. But we hear the story during Holy Week knowing what is to come. We don't skip over the suffering of Christ. In one of his books, a different book, Yancey pointed out that even in the Bible, the events of Holy Week slow down. They're not speeded up. Even in Mark's gospel, the event slows down. At that point, it slows, and we get much more detail of Holy Week than earlier parts of Christ's ministry. One early Christian commentator even went so far as to say that the Gospels are actually the record of Jesus' final week with extended introductions. This Sunday, the church covers everything from Jesus entering the city of Jerusalem to shouts of Hosanna through the moment when Jesus was laid into a borrowed tomb. It's Palm/Passion Sunday. Two different subjects sort of jammed up against each other. One Orthodox priest labeled it a historical and liturgical mess. It's as if they really couldn't decide. This is a week of celebration. Yeah. Wave the palms, shout hosannas. Is it that celebration week, though, or is it a story of terrific passion and suffering? Yes, it is both. It is both a week of celebratory ceremony and of passion and suffering. Palm Sunday is a ceremony. It's a ceremony, and we read about it in Scripture. We reenact it sometimes. You've seen the processions that some churches do where they walk around the block into the neighborhoods, singing their hosannas. It is a ceremony, but the Palm Sunday that we heard in the gospel this morning, in the processional reading for Palm Sunday, is not the story of a ceremony fit for a king. We would read some of the royal psalms that were written having to do with previous kings arriving in the town, and we would see how a new king was traditionally welcomed to the temple city. His entrance would be huge. There would be triumph all around, large crowds, trumpets, banners, parades. Not a small group of followers who cried out at the top of their lungs to be saved, because that's what Hosanna means. God save us. They sang it out into the ears of a man riding on a small colt, a donkey. Palm Sunday is a ceremony, but it's not a ceremony as required. In fact, it pales to anything else you'd read about in the history of Israel. Jesus didn't even stay in the temple or the city for very long. Hear what Mark said. Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple, and when he had looked around at everything as it was late, and he went out then to Bethany with the 12. There is a 2,000-year-old Mishnah that describes how pilgrims would come to the temple. The Mishnah is a book of laws and rules guiding life and ceremony for the Jewish people. And the instructions for pilgrims include the following. They would come through the arched doors of the temple. They would find themselves then in a large courtyard. They could either turn to the right or turn to the left. The usual pattern was to turn to the right and then follow. They would walk along the outside of the courtyard, and then they would exit through that same door that they came in. But there were different instructions in the Mishnah for temple pilgrims who were arriving brokenhearted. These pilgrims entered the courtyard and then turned to the left and walked in the opposite direction of everyone else. And when they traveled around the courtyard in that direction, the brokenhearted inevitably would meet other pilgrims on their journey coming from the other side. "What has happened to you?" the person from the right was to ask. And then the brokenhearted would share the reason for their sorrow. And after listening, the pilgrim from the right was to offer a blessing to the one who told their story. And then each would proceed on their way. This Mishnah was part of the temple life in Jesus' own day. And I wonder if Jesus entered the temple like that, came into the courtyard, and looked around to take it all in. It's easy to imagine that Jesus stepped into the heartbreaking stories of others that day, that he was part of a rhythm of both holy lament and holy listening, both and. The tension of the Passover festival and the week that Jesus had ahead of him, all swirling together in his mind with the stories of the brokenhearted pilgrims. In all of Mark's gospel, Jesus moved toward the city of Jerusalem. He brought people with him, and he wasn't the only one moving in that direction. But Jesus moved at his own pace and in his own sense of purpose. He didn't move as he was expected to move. He moved his way at his pace to his glory. Palm Sunday was a ceremony, but it was not fit for a king. It was not as required, and it was not done according to tradition. It broke everything. The ceremony began a very big week in the life of Jesus and his followers of big breaks. The week will see the 12 followers broken from within and from without. The week will see the sitting king, Herod Antipas, broken, along with the powers of Pilate and the Jewish religious leaders. The system we see will be broken. The week will see some bread broken with both dear friends and even more dear promise. And the week will see a body broken, pierced, and killed. Maybe in the midst of our lives, of our pilgrimage, and as we begin this Holy Week together, the way we could do it faithfully and lovingly is to take an invitation. As this holy story unfolds for us in all of its paradoxical glory, perhaps we can move as pilgrims. Maybe we can pause a moment on our journey to meet the brokenhearted ones in our communities, or to bear witness to their sorrows, or to share in their own heartbreak. Perhaps we will walk and share our heartbreak with others to be heard and blessed. Perhaps as the holy story of Jesus unfolds, we can do both of those things. Not just paradoxically, but following the way of Jesus moving at his pace of compassion and his pace of love. Everything is done ceremoniously, a ceremony that perhaps is not fit for a king, but a ceremony with a truly amazing finish. Jesus will both die and rise, so that we too will both die and rise. Die and rise with him. When this week is finished, we will find ourselves at both an ending and a new, very new beginning. Thanks be to God.